This is a little video about gear cable changing. I've been asked by a few people about it, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to simplify this. So if you've done it before and you know about it, don't watch. Teaching you to suck eggs. But if you've never changed the gear cable, I highly recommend that you learn how to do it, because if you're out on a ride and it goes, it's a long way home in top gear. It's hard going, I tell you. Now the derailleur always wants to go to the top gear. It's sprung like that. So if the cable goes, it will automatically go to the top end, the smallest one here. So that is what you're doing really. The cable is just pulling it up the gears and keeping it in place in the gear you want, but it actually wants to keep going to the top gear all the time, so it's under pressure. Now I don't know whether you can see that, but there's the cable there on this one, and it's fracturing. You can feel it. If you run your fingers down them, you'll feel that they're breaking. Now that goes back up inside the cable and it holds the movement of the derailleur, so you'll find that your gears will start to get sticky and they'll jump and they do all sorts of horrible things. That's when you know that something's going wrong, because they usually stay within, you know, a little bit of adjustment on the adjuster. But if you ever start to get a little bit of grunchy gears, always run your finger down. Be careful you don't stick into your finger, just run your finger up and see if anything's breaking. Make sure it's in the top gear, then you can feel the whole thing. All derailleurs do exactly the same thing, no matter what shape, size or look they have. They all do the same thing. They change gear, they want to go to the top gear, they need a cable to pull them up into gear and hold them. This is the Mark 1, and on this bike I have the Mark 2. The only difference is there's a little button that locks the arm in place out of the way when you've got a puncher. But other than that, there's no difference at all between the two. So that's the same look, but that's the Mark 2. The ends of the cables on most of the upper end derailleurs are an Allen key fit. So they're actually held on by an Allen key here, look, with a little bracket that goes there. Always make sure which side your cable is going into, either that side or that side. That's quite important, because then you can bend the cable in the wrong shape as it's pulling up and down. You want it to be nice and straight, so there's no kink in it. So always make sure what side your cable is actually going into to be held in, so it's either that side or that side. The cable itself runs all the way through the frame, through the middle, up underneath, up to the gear change mechanism, the toggle. Now before the cable gets to the changing ratchet, there's always an adjuster, and they come in a couple of different forms, all depends what sort of bike you got. They use these, which are Jaegers, or they use these, I believe these are Shimano's. I quite like both of them actually. This one can be a bit finicky, just needs a little bit of tension now and again just to hold it in place. These ones I found very sure-footed. No complaints with these at all. I've got titanium ones, they're quite expensive, these are. I would actually, if you're going to use these, go for the titanium ones. They're stronger than the actual cheaper versions of these. But basically all these do is adjust the tension of the cable to hold that directly in line with the gear it's supposed to be in. And I call it a sweet spot. You keep turning it gently till you get it to run perfectly and change gear perfectly, which it should do. We'll get onto that again later. Gear change mechanisms, they all do the same thing. There's like a little ratchet inside, you'll feel them as they go up and down. This one's broken, it's a Shimano one, that the ratchet inside wore away basically in use. If you see there's a little hole there, you'll always find the little hole where the cable goes in, and it usually runs through into this piece here where the cable joins it. Okay, exactly the same, most of them exactly the same as that. As you can see on that one, it's got a little hole at the top, and the cable comes through this part here, and that's where the cable joins, and you won't be taking that out at all, just the cable from the top part. So make sure the adjuster is right back so the hole is showing, so it's in line, it's actually in line with the cable itself, so the cable's straight from the hole through to the cable itself. All right, the outer cable I should say. When you undo the nut or the Allen screw, again make sure you know which way the cable is going to lay. This one is laying that side, okay, and you can actually see, look at that, that's frayed underneath as well, so this one was fit to bust. Now I'm going to cut this here just above where all the breaking is, because I'm going to have to take this cable back through, and I don't want to score the inner cable by dragging it through with all these sharp bits. So I'm going to cut this bit away. You don't have to do that, but you know, when they're as bad as this, I'm not going to drag it through the outer cable and score it. Okay, so that's now cut, and you can see what bad shape that's in. That's quite nasty. What you can do is to get the cable out of there, is give it a little shunt up like that, and you'll see it pops out. See, it popped out, and basically just pull it through like that. You can tell what condition it's in as well. This one's not too bad, so it's just fractured, but sometimes you can see if there's any rust in there, if any water's got in. And if that is the case, sometimes it's good to change the outer cable if it's really messy, because if you put a new cable in there, it's just going to go rusty. So if it's too mucky, then you're going to have to change the outer, but we're just changing the inner on this one. So that's the cable out. Now I did actually say you should actually try and hold these, because sometimes they come apart, but most of the times they stay together because it's the actual tension that's holding it all together. But this one stayed in place, so no problem. Here we have the new inner cable. That's the little end, will fit in the hole. Some people say grease them before you put them in, run a little bit of grease on your fingers and run them through. I've never bothered, to tell you the truth. I've never seen any benefit from it. Like I say, if they go rusty, I'll just change the inner and outer cable anyway. So, but this time, as you can see, it's gone right through its life. I think that's the original cable. Might be wrong, but there was no rust in there at all. So that's pretty waterproof. So what's the point in putting grease on it? The other thing is, I've learned, don't go for the most expensive cables. They just break the same as these do. These are real cheap ones, and they last just as long. I've bought really expensive ones with plastic coating on them, and at the end of the day, I really have found that the cheapest ones, you can get 10 for a couple of quid off of eBay, are just as good. When you're feeding the end through, try not to flare the end, in other words break it apart, because then you have to cut it again, because trying to get the flared cable through, it will come unravelled, is you know, a bit dodgy. And be careful of your fingers, they're rather sharp, you can't stick them in your fingers, so try and push it through. It will do it itself, just jiggle it around and you'll find it will pop through. You don't have to force it. If you're forcing it, you're doing it wrong. Okay, look, I've pushed it through the hole, it sits there. Now that end wants to go around into that end. Now I can't do it at one end, so I'll have to show you. There you go, I've bent that cable and it's going back in to the top of the actual inner cable. Okay, so you just feed it through. You might find some little sticky bits as it goes through the adjuster. Actually this one's gone through nice and easy, and you just keep feeding it through until basically it comes out the other end. It shouldn't take long. As she comes, I can hear it. There you go. So it's come out the cable end, nice and sweet. And there you see the little nipple, and that sits neatly in that hole. What you want to do is shut it off again, push that through so it's nice and snug, and then give it a little bit of a pull, and you'll find that that is now neatly in that hole. Okay, so that's done. That's as simple as that. As you can see, it's very simple. You can do it on the roadside. It's not magic, it's not difficult, you can't break anything, don't be frightened of it. But you're going to need to, if you're out on the road and you're 30 miles away from your home, you're not going to want to come home in top gear, I'll warn you. Okay, attaching the cable to the derailleur. Now what I do is I screw this up, okay, and then screw it down a couple of turns, so it's more. What you're looking for is to tension the cable, not to loosen it off, because you're going to try and get this as tight as you can onto that nut. So basically you've given yourself some room to back it off, to give it some room. You don't want to screw it right up to the top. You can screw it up to the top and then give it a couple of screws down, but most of the times you're going to apply a tension on this, because the tension is what pulls it away and pulls it into the gear, because as I said, the derailleur always wants to push itself to the top gear, so you're actually pushing it the other way. So most of the times you're going to want to adjust this out to give some attention once you've got it on. Now again, lots of people have different theories about putting these on. I try and put it on as hard as I possibly can, round onto the nut. Look, see, there's some nasty bits of metal still stuck in here. Look, that's shredded off. That's why I don't pull the old cable back through the inner cable, because you can leave this sort of stuff behind inside. So making sure that's nice and clean. There's a nice little run there. Look, it goes under a bridge there and then back onto the nut. So I'm going to again do that because I can't do it with one hand. Run the cable through the little channel, through the bridge, and it's now sitting down the other side, ready to go onto the nut. And remember which side it was on the nut, either that side or that side. But what you're trying to do is keep the cable in a straight line. You don't want it, if you put it up there, look, it's kinked, and every time you use it backwards and forwards, it's just going to bend the cable and break it. So basically you want to do it in a nice straight line, which would be that side. Okay. Some gears, this one's a very simple one, it's got just a washer underneath the nut. Some of them have these really nice little cradles that you poke them through, and then they clamp it on like a cradle. This one's just a washer, this one, but they're just as effective. And you don't have to do these up like, your life depends on it. You do it up at a reasonable torque, and then you're not breaking the cable. If you do it too tight, you can actually fracture the cable just before the washer where you're tightening it up. So you don't have to go mad when you tighten these up. I've got it round the back of the washer. That's how it's going to look. What I do is pull it round so it gives us some tension, and I put a little pair of pliers where my fingers are and pull it as much tension as I can without pulling the derailleur. Okay, but I want that cable as taut as I can to that nut without pulling the derailleur. Yeah, so as you can see, I'll pull that as tight as I possibly can without moving the derailleur at all, but really bear down on it, get as much slack as you can out of that cable, and then tighten the nut. There you go, look, that's the new cable in. It runs around there, around that nice little, into that nice little channel, under a little bridge, round and into the nut, and that is running a straight line. Okay, so that's nice and tight, not over tight. You don't have to go mad, because like I say, you can fracture the cable at this end where the washer's going down. It just crimps it and it can break it prematurely. And I've got lots of it left. I always keep quite a bit at the end there, and cut it and put a little nodule on the end to stop it from fraying. There's nice little nodules that you can put on the end, and you just clamp them, and it stops the wire from fraying after you've stopped mucking around with it. There you go, there's the nodule on the end of the cable to keep it nice and neat, and I've kept a cut back 1.5 inches, 2 inches away from the nut. That's enough, that's okay. And I would suggest, if you're going to do all this yourself, is to get yourself a good pair of wire cutters and a nice little crimping tool. See this little bit here? Whenever you're where my thumb is, whenever you're going to cut new cables, outer cables, again you can get that on eBay really cheap. You can get any colour you want and also these nodules you can get on eBay, you get about 10 for a couple of quid. It's the best places to get them. But this one here, that little thing there, is when you've cut the cable, outer cable, that's what you want, a really nice cutter so you get a clean end. Then you force the end onto this little pike thing here and it opens up the end, and then you want to try and clean up the end with a file to try and get it nice and flat, or if you've got a little grinding wheel, do that to get the sharp edge out so it sits in the end knot bits. I don't know if you can see one here, I don't think you can, like little metal ends that you put over the cable with a hole in it, so they butt into there nicely. So the cables themselves are cheap on eBay as well. You can, guys, sometimes you can get 10 for about 7 quid, really, you know what I mean, and they're just as good. So basically that's it, that's the wiring, that's nice and tight, and now really all I've got to do is adjust the tension. However, I always grease the ends that are open to the atmosphere and the rain and whatever, which is this bit here. Put too much on there. I just rub a little bit of grease on these and just up underneath where it goes into the cable, keeps the moisture out I suppose, and just rub it around there a little bit, and that stops it from going rusty in the rain, really just helps it. There you go. Now, there's no sort of looseness in here, that's been butted right up against because I've really pulled it up with a pair of pliers, so it's under tension but it's nice up against the stop. The derailleur is at its extent and they can be adjusted by the screws there and there to make sure they're running. The top and the bottom is running. That's another story, that I won't get into that here, but if that's set right, all that you've done here will not alter that at all. That just stays as it is because that's held on by the adjusting nuts. All we're doing is changing the cable, so that is under a nice piece of tension. You can feel it there. You know, I'm going to have to put some more tension on it because you can never take it right out, but it's nice, and the derailleur itself is right up against its stop, it can't go any further. That's under a nice piece of tension, so when I adjust the tensioner, which is underneath the toggle under there, it will take the remainder of the tension out and should hold it right in. However, you will get a bit of cable stretch after you've used it for a while, so you will have to take it up a little bit more on there. Maybe after a couple of miles it will start to miss again, so you just give it a bit more tension out, so you're pulling the cable apart and that gives it the tension that should hold it back in again. That's why I take it right up to the top and bring it down, so I've got lots left to put tension on, because if you leave it right down the bottom then you've got no more room to do tension, and you'll have to undo this again and pull it through with that at the top. So we've started at the best we possibly can, so that's done. All I've got to do now is get it on the road and take the tension out of the cable and get it in gear. You can do it while on the table, you can jack the back up and do it, but it's best to do it once it's flat and it's under pressure, you know. Again, that's personal choice. I always do it on the road, and then it's in then. But that's basically it. That's how to change a cable, and you can do it on the road, so it's no mystery. A lot of these bike mechanics like to think it's magic, you know, don't want to tell you, but that's it. And you're going to want to do it if you break one on the road. I can assure you, you will not want to ride it back in top gear. So and it's literally, once you've got used to doing it, you can do it in 10 minutes, 15 minutes, and you're back on the road again. So always carry a spare cable, or even two when I go touring. Anyway, good luck with that.